I got pregnant after many years of infertility. My husband called it a miracle, but what happened next destroyed our life. My name is Sophie. I'm 32 years old. Alex and I have been married for 8 years. And throughout all this time, our biggest dream has been the same, to become parents. I remember the day we first decided we were ready to have a baby. We were still young, in love, full of hope. I never thought it could be a problem. All my friends already had children, getting pregnant almost accidentally. I believed it would be just as easy for us. But months went by, and the pregnancy test kept showing just one line. At first, we didn't panic. We tried not to fixate on it. But a year passed, then 2, and there we were in a doctor's office, facing his serious gaze. I have to be honest with you. There are some serious issues. Your husband's test results are very poor. I looked at Alex. He was silent. He held my hand, but I could feel it trembling. The doctor continued talking, using medical terms, but I heard nothing. I only saw how my dreams were shattering against reality. The likelihood of natural conception is almost zero. I recommend considering IVF or a donor. Almost zero. That was a sentence. That night, we didn't sleep. Alex lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I wanted to comfort him, to say we would get through it. But I couldn't. I've failed you, haven't I? He whispered.
No.
It's not your fault. I can't give you a child. His voice broke, and for the first time, I saw my strong, confident husband cry. I held him, but I felt the first crack forming between us. Another year passed. We tried treatments, talked about artificial insemination, even considered adoption. But nothing moved forward. And while we fought this battle, our marriage started to fall apart. Alex withdrew into himself. He worked more than ever, coming home late. Sex became rare. And when it did happen, it felt mechanical, as if we were fulfilling an obligation. I knew he had started seeing himself as inadequate. I tried to convince him otherwise, but it was in vain. He distanced himself, and I was left feeling lonelier than ever. And that's when Thomas came into my life. Thomas worked in the neighboring department. We weren't close. We would just occasionally cross paths at work. But he was always kind, cheerful. And most importantly, he listened. At first, it was just conversations. He asked how I was doing, how things were with my husband. I told him, maybe too much. Then came coffee after work. And before I knew it, I was looking forward to those meetings more than going home. He didn't pressure me. But one evening, when we were alone in his apartment, it happened. I didn't plan it. I thought I would never cheat on Alex. But I did. And I can't say I regretted it. I tried to convince myself it was just a one-time thing. A moment of weakness. But a week later, I was in his bed again. And the week after that again. I knew it was wrong. But those moments were the only times I felt alive. And then life rewarded me. My period was late. I took a test and saw 2 lines. I sat on the bathroom floor, unable to breathe. I was pregnant. I should have been crying from happiness, right? But I was crying from fear. This child was not Alex's. This child was Thomas's. I had betrayed my husband, and now I was carrying another man's baby. But the worst was yet to come. When I told Alex I was pregnant, he froze. And then he cried.
With joy.
It's a miracle. This is our miracle, Sophie. I always believed God would give us this. I stood before him, smiling, while everything inside me was breaking apart. I should have told the truth. But I couldn't. I just nodded. Yes, it's our miracle. I lied. I thought I could live with that lie. I didn't know yet that every lie is a bomb. And it will explode, eventually. From the moment I told Alex I was pregnant, everything changed. I had never seen him so happy. Every evening, when he came home from work, he brought me flowers or some treats. He stroked my belly, even though nothing was showing yet, and each time he repeated, "I can't believe it. This is our miracle, Sophie. Our little miracle." His eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in years. And that scared me the most. I looked at him and realized I hadn't just betrayed him. I had given him hope, and that hope was built on a lie. I tried to forget about Thomas. After I found out I was pregnant, I told him it was over. He didn't make a scene. He didn't beg me to stay. He just nodded. "If that's your choice, I respect it. But if you ever need help, I'll be here." His words were simple, but they killed me even more. Because he was the one who was supposed to be this child's father. And he didn't even know. Time went on. The first few months of pregnancy flew by quickly. Alex was caring, attentive, treating me like a queen. He accompanied me to every appointment, even when I told him I could go alone. When we heard the baby's heartbeat, tears welled up in his eyes. "Sophia, I always thought this was impossible. And now I'm listening to our baby's heart beating. This is the greatest happiness of my life." I smiled. I played the role of the perfect wife. But inside, I was slowly dying. Every time I looked at the ultrasound monitor, I thought, will the baby have Thomas's eyes? Will Alex see it right away when he holds the baby? That fear kept me awake at night. I woke up drenched in cold sweat, imagining Alex holding the baby in his arms, looking at him and realizing that it wasn't his child, that he had lost everything again, that I had destroyed him. One evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. We were sitting on the couch. He was stroking my belly, and suddenly I asked, "Have you ever thought that maybe the doctors were wrong?" He looked at me surprised. "What do you mean?" "Well, you remember they said the chances were very low. Almost zero. And now," Alex paused, "I've thought about it. But sometimes miracles happen, Sophie. We deserved this miracle." I nodded, but I felt panic growing inside me. He believed in a miracle, and I knew it wasn't faith. It was an illusion that I had created. And if that illusion shattered, he would hate me. After that, I clung even harder to our marriage. I was gentle, caring. I wiped away his tears when he spoke about how much he loved us. But every smile was fake. Every "I love you too" was a painful lie. My fear grew along with my belly, because I knew when this baby was born, Alex would want to be sure, and I wouldn't be able to control that. But I didn't know then that the worst was yet to come, that the truth wouldn't be revealed by me, or even by Alex. The truth would come from the person I least expected. I thought I had everything under control. I was careful. I played the role of the perfect wife. But there was one thing I hadn't considered. People who have once experienced loss always live in fear of the next blow. Alex was happy, but deep inside, he was always afraid that this happiness would be taken away from him. I started noticing that he was acting strangely. At first, it was little things. His gaze lingered on me longer than usual. He asked who was calling, even when it was just my mom. A few times, I noticed him checking my email, something he had never done before. I tried to ignore it, but I felt the tension growing. And then I found him in the bathroom. He was holding my toothbrush. His hands were trembling. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to stay calm. He turned around sharply. "Nothing. I just picked up the wrong brush by mistake." His voice was uneasy. I knew he was lying. I knew he suspected something. But I was afraid to ask. That evening, I couldn't hold it in. "Do you trust me?" Alex lifted his head, giving me a long look. "Of course. Why are you asking?" "It's just, sometimes I feel like you sense something, that you have doubts." He let out a heavy breath. I don't doubt you, Sophie. It's just sometimes I'm afraid that all this isn't forever, that I could lose it. You understand? I nodded, but I knew he meant something else. He wasn't afraid of losing happiness. He was afraid that this happiness was fake,
That it was built on a lie.
and the scariest part was he was right. The next day, my mother-in-law called me. Sophie, I'm so happy for you too. Alex's father and I already picked out a gift for the baby. But I wanted to talk to you. I froze. What happened? She hesitated. Alex has changed a lot. He's happy. I can see that. But I know my son. I see how nervous he is. How he's hiding something. Has he told you anything? I lied. No, everything's fine. He's just anxious like all future fathers. Well, maybe. It's just stay close to him. He's been through a lot. And if you feel something's wrong, tell me. I'll help. I thanked her, but inside, everything tightened. His mother had sensed it too. My lie was beginning to crack. A few days later, I came home earlier than usual. Alex was in his office. I heard him talking on the phone. I wanted to say hello, but something stopped me. Yes, I handed it over. From the toothbrush. Yes, I want to be sure. No one should find out about this, you understand? Especially her. I felt the blood drain from my face. I took a step back, trying not to reveal myself. He had ordered a paternity test. My biggest fear had become reality. That evening, I couldn't look him in the eye. I cooked dinner, smiled, listened to him talk about work. But I knew he already suspected something. And now everything depended on the result. A result I already knew. It wasn't his child, and I couldn't stop it. All I could do was wait. Wait for the explosion that would destroy everything. Those 3 days were the worst of my life. I tried to act as usual. I smiled, asked about Alex's work, and picked out wallpaper for the nursery with him. But every night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the moment when everything would collapse, waiting for the result that would end it all. That evening, I already sensed something had changed. Alex came home unusually quiet. He didn't kiss me as he usually did, just greeted me dryly. I noticed he was holding an envelope in his hand. I knew what it was. I knew he knew everything. What's that? My voice trembled, though I tried to sound casual. Alex slowly raised his eyes to meet mine. Do you really want me to say it out loud? I stayed silent. He tossed the envelope onto the table. It's a paternity test result. Just did it for peace of mind. Although, what's the point of explaining this to you now, right? I felt my hands trembling. Alex.
No, don't.
His voice suddenly broke, tears glistening in his eyes. Don't you dare justify now. Did you do this? Is it true? This isn't my child? I couldn't lie anymore. I nodded. He closed his eyes. His chest rose and fell heavily. Who? It doesn't matter. A name. He slammed his fist on the table, making me flinch. Thomas. A colleague. Silence fell over the room. How long? A few months. I ended it as soon as I found out about the pregnancy.
I didn't mean for this to happen.
It was a mistake. Alex laughed. But it wasn't laughter. It was a ragged, broken sound filled with pain and despair. A mistake? A mistake. Sophie? I believed in a miracle. I thought this was a sign. That it was our chance. After all those years. After all the doctors, the injections, the tests. I truly thought that God had finally given me this gift. But it was just you sleeping with someone else. I broke into tears. I never wanted to hurt you. I was afraid to tell the truth. I saw how happy you were, and I couldn't. I was scared of losing you. You lost me, Sophie, the moment you got into his bed. He stood up and walked to the bedroom. I heard him opening the closet, gathering his things. I followed him, sobbing. Please, Alex. Don't leave. We can get through this. We can raise this child together. You loved this baby before it was even born. That doesn't have to change. She can still be yours. In your heart. He turned sharply. His eyes were burning with anger and grief. It changes everything. This isn't my child. And you're no longer my wife. I dropped to my knees, holding my belly, as if trying to shield my baby from his words. Alex, please.
He looked at me one last time.
I loved you, but now I see it was all an illusion. Everything we had was a lie, and I don't want to be part of this lie anymore. He walked out. I heard the door slam shut, and then I realized I had lost everything. I sat on the floor, clutching my stomach. I listened to the silence, and in that silence, I finally understood that lies don't just destroy relationships. They destroy people, sometimes forever. Alex was gone. His suitcase had vanished from under the wardrobe. His toothbrush no longer stood in the bathroom. Even his favorite coffee mug, the one he used every morning, was gone from the table. All that was left was silence, and the pain that ate me from the inside. I spent the entire night sitting on the bedroom floor. I didn't cry. My tears had dried up the moment the door closed behind him. I just sat there, holding my belly. Inside me was a baby, a child I already loved, but one who had become the reason I lost everything I had built over the years. Was he to blame?
No.
Was I to blame?
Yes.
I had destroyed our life, and now I was left alone. The next day, I dialed Alex's number. The subscriber cannot answer your call. I tried again, and again. I sent him a message. Alex, please talk to me. I understand that I hurt you, but let's just talk. No response. I texted again, and again. Silence. Alex had disappeared from my life. Forever. A week passed. I didn't know how to move on. Everyone around me kept asking how I was feeling, how the pregnancy was going, when they would see the first pictures of the nursery. I smiled. I lied. And only at home, when the doors were closed, did I return to my reality. Lonely, bleak, and terrifying. I had only the baby, and no one else.
Thomas.
I had kept my distance from him. But now, being completely alone, I dialed his number. He picked up immediately. Sophie? Is everything okay? I was silent for a few seconds. Can we meet? He agreed without hesitation. We sat in the same cafe where our story had once begun. I wanted to reach out, but I knew you didn't want to see me, he said. What happened? I took a breath. Alex found out. He left. Thomas nodded. He didn't look surprised. I thought this might happen. I pressed my lips together. I'm alone. And this child, your child. Thomas gently touched my hand. I'm here, Sophie. I'm not going anywhere. We'll raise our baby together. And maybe one day you'll forgive me for how all this started. I looked at him.
His words were right.
He was saying everything I needed to hear. But something inside me silently screamed, this isn't it. He's not the one. This isn't your happiness. But I had no other choice. Time passed. Thomas stayed by my side. He took me to checkups, bought baby clothes. He was caring and kind. But I felt that he was doing it not out of love for me. He was simply doing what was expected. His talk of family was right, but I didn't see that spark in his eyes. The one I had once seen in Alex's. I had made this choice myself, and now I had to live with it. I gave birth to a son. I held him in my arms, looking at his tiny face, and I saw Alex. Even though he wasn't the father, I saw what our son could have been, what our marriage could have been. I burst into tears right there in the hospital room. But this time, they weren't tears of happiness. They were tears of loss. Thomas was there. He took pictures of us, sent them to his parents. My son. I'm so happy, Sophie. We can do this together. I nodded, but deep inside, I knew I would never be as happy as I was with Alex. I had lost him, and not even this child could bring back what I had destroyed. Sometimes I see Alex on the street. He's different now, harsher. He no longer smiles like he used to. Sometimes our eyes meet, but he quickly looks away. And that's when I understand. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost the person who loved me more than anything. And I destroyed it with my own hands. I live on. I'm a mother. I'm raising a child. I have Thomas. But every evening, when I put my son to bed, I close my eyes and see another life. A life that will never be. A life I lost forever. And that is my greatest punishment. The end.
Please subscribe to our channel Stellar Stories. We have new amazing stories coming out every day. Thank you.